Good afternoon, Ladybugs and Yellow Jackets. Welcome to this Friday's episode of Author Reads here on Fae Productions. I am your host, Fairy Princess Lily. I'm really excited to be back here with you guys, and I'm just going to go ahead and before we get into it today, as usual, please hit the like and subscribe button and hit the bell if you want to get notifications of our future shows. I just have a couple of things that I want to say before we jump into it here. One of them is sign up for our Cyber Samhain candy exchange. Today is the last day. Technically it was yesterday, but since today is the day that I'm actually doing everybody's name swaps and sending out kind of your secret tooth fairy for the candy exchange, you could still sign up for that, and I'll be getting to the logistics of it this evening, so you have a little time to squeak in. It's really cool. If you want to get candy for Halloween, then all you have to do is just go fill out the form and you will get a partner to buy candy for, and your name will be given to somebody, and it's like Secret Santa, but virtually. So, and then on Halloween, we will all be here on the channel to open and eat our candy together, and amongst a bunch of other things, including costume contests. So we would super like it if you guys, even if you just want to do the candy part so that you can partake in Halloween, you don't have to be quarantined. That kind of rhymes, huh? Avoid the quarantine, enjoy the Halloween. Yes, so that is number one. Number two is today's show's sponsor, and I just want to give a shout out to Platyfly Studios. You may have actually seen her here before. She's been on the channel with Handmade Home Shopping, is a fantastic artist and vendor, and I would really recommend that everybody go check her out. She does fantasy-inspired clothing and accessories. They're all handcrafted by the artist, who is Kat Hawthorne, and she is in Indianapolis, in Indiana. So shout out to all you people there. And one of the things she also does, which I have to say are super cute, stickers. I love her stickers. Please go check them out. Her items are all ready-made. She does have pixie skirts, mermaid gloves, and made to order as well. So it's a great opportunity to get yourself and somebody else maybe a unique handmade item and gift, because holiday shopping is coming up. Also, if you order here quickly, you probably have time to get it for a Halloween costume, since we still have 15 days to go, right? So follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and she does run sales pretty frequently. So if you get there, you'll get the notifications of that. It's Platyfly Studios. Her information is in the low bar below, so you can go ahead and just find all the links and clicks there. And with that said, then we are ready to jump into today's show. Huzzah! Today with us, yes, is author Joyce Reynolds-Ward. And Joyce, please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us about who you are and where you're from and what you write.
Well, I'm Joyce Reynolds-Ward. I currently pretty much spend most of my time in Enterprise, Oregon. That's a little bitty corner up in northeastern Oregon, but if you've heard of Wallowa Lake, that's where we are.
East of Pendleton?
Yeah, about 2 hours from Pendleton.
Oh, wow. Really northeastern. You're almost like, that's like the Idaho.
Almost.
Almost.
Almost. We're 70 miles from the Idaho border to the east, and 70 miles from the Washington border to the north. And Hell's Canyon, which is the boundary, is 70 miles away.
Well, geographical anomaly. You're 70 miles from everywhere.
Yes, 70 miles from the interstate. So we are really backwoods here.
Well, you seem to be doing okay. We want to be more backwoods. we're trying to find the location for ourselves so that we can go be a little more backwoods.
Well, it's pretty much a self-sufficient community out here. We're retired, so we've got a certain amount of flexibility. Out here, it's pretty much ranching country, and ranching wheat country, wheat ranching, beef ranching. Hay, we grow a lot out here in Malawa County. We grow a lot of hay that gets shipped overseas. So it's
Isn't,
Nez
isn't,
Perce country.
isn't
It's
Oregon the hayseed capital of the United States or something like that?
grass seed.
Grass seed. Okay.
That's Willamette Valley, and then 70 miles away in the Grand Ronde Valley.
70 miles away. That's awesome. Okay.
But yeah, I write science fiction and fantasy, and a lot of it is with Northwest settings, not just here in Northeastern Oregon. But my first series had some here because I lived here 39 years ago, moved back here in 2015, and love the country. But I
Mhm.
also set a lot of it up on Mount Hood. My first series, the Netwalk sequence, actually features a bit of skiing. Yeah, the characters were science fiction ski bums. I was busy pitching the story on the ski lift to all the ski bums. They're going, skiing in space, man. Hey, I'd love to ski the moon. I'll ski Mars, man.
It's hard for me to even imagine skiing out there because it gets so deserty when you start going that direction. But you must have some good mountains there in that corner.
Yeah, we have the Wallowa Mountains and the little local ski. I don't ski anymore because I'm getting up there and I have a knee that's cranky. And the last
Uh,
thing you want to do is have the knee go out when you're trying to make a turn.
that's it. That basically sounds like a wipeout.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yep.
And so my husband broke his shoulder really bad one year,
Ooh.
so we are really cautious about it. But our little ski area here is community owned, run by the Lions Club.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Nice.
and it looks like when you're driving around and you look over and you see something that looks like a peace symbol on the hillside, that's Fergie, Ferguson Ridge.
Well, maybe instead of skiing, you can now upgrade to intertubing and you can just cruise down the mountainside with your inner tube.
Well, I keep threatening to teach my horse ski joring, which is basically the horse goes running along and pulls a skier.
Oh,
But
that sounds amazing. I would do that actually. If that was a thing, I would completely do that.
the problem is I have to have somebody to ride the horse, or else I have to teach her to drive. And
Well, you can hook her up, like a sleigh, right? Except for it's a ski ride instead of a sleigh ride.
yeah, well, she's 20 years old and opinionated, but she loves to gallop in the snow when we get snow here. We're at about 3,900 feet. It's
I
39,
have no
4,000 feet.
idea what we're at. That seems kind of mid-mountain, but that's because when I try to imagine how high that is, I think of Mount Rainier, which is something like 14,400, and that's its highest point, though. So I try to imagine, well, what does 4,000 feet look like on a scale of Mount Rainier?
Well, if you're at all familiar with Mount Hood, it's about the same elevation as Government Camp.
Actually, that is where we used to go to take ski lessons when I was just a wee youngling. So
Ski Bowl.
yeah, we went to a little side story. I don't mean to hijack your hour here. My grandfather helped build the original Timberline Lodge, and
Ooh.
that is so we used to go to government camp, and also Timberline is where we took our ski lessons when we were young. So because I lived down in that area, and now I am more northern in the kingdom. So
Well, I mean, the Netwalk sequence was basically set in the Welch's area because I taught at Welch's for 10 years, and that's actually how I started skiing.
oh wow, how fun is that? You have quite the eclectic background from ski instructor to author. So tell us a little bit about the books that you have here today, and then the one that you're going to be reading from. I'm curious to
Well,
hear.
this actually started out, I was getting fascinated about the issues with John Deere tractor right to repair because tractors these days are very computerized and they put digital rights management on the software. So if you're working away on harvest and your equipment goes clunk, you're screwed until you can get an official John Deere mechanic or an official John Deere software programmer to deal with it.
And this somehow led to your book.
Well, and then I started researching agricultural technology, and that's like, oh, that's interesting. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. Nobody in science fiction is writing about drones and bizarre chemical formulations and the way that agriculture is looking at trying to increase drought resistance and uh, resistance to various bugs. And, there's a lot of really intense carbon capture research going on right now.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of researchers that are taking carbon capture fairly seriously in the agriculture world.
I'm not sure I even know what carbon capture means, to be perfectly honest.
In the context of agriculture, a lot of it is focused on developing plant systems that uptake and isolate carbon in the soil.
And they do this for why?
Reduce the carbon load in the atmosphere.
Oh, okay. Now I understand.
Yeah, it's a climate. There's a lot of climate change and managing climate change stuff that is, you've and one of the things that kind of blew me away. So I was doing all this research because it was one of those research rabbit holes.
I know. I was going to say that's the rabbit hole you fell down.
And then a buddy of mine that I published a short story in one of his anthologies is opening up a press, and he was taking pitches. And I've been knocking around this ranch story for a while. And so I came up with the idea of here's this single woman rancher who is trying her darndest to keep the ranch going. And things took off from there. It originally was called the Ruby Park Project. And originally the ex-husband was, no, he was going to be the bad boy. And they kept yelling at him, no, I have my reasons. And I started poking into what are those reasons? And then it became, oh, okay. And COVID hit and it became a trilogy.
And here we are. Yeah, because then there you are. And so I seem to recall you saying something about how your books are releasing this month, or have they released?
Okay. Inheritance is currently out. The second book, Ascendant, is on pre-order and will be out on the 31st. The third, Realization, releases on the 15th of November. Then I have a coda, a short story that pops up on December 1st, and it's a belated Christmas honeymoon. And I've got a fourth book that will release in February.
Wow. You have
Hey, it's COVID. I can't, I can go out to the woods, I can ride my horse, but I can't go socialize with anybody really. So
right, which is kind of a bummer. So which book are you going to be reading to us today? And if you would just a little bit about that one, and then I will turn the screen over to you and let you start your reading. Also, just to anybody out there watching, once we are in the reading portion of the show, if you have questions, comments, etc., that you would like to ask Joyce, all you have to do is put them into the comment section. I'll be there. And anyway, tell us a little bit about what you're reading today, Joyce.
Okay, well, I might just read from the. I gotta figure out.
There you go.
So basically, this is the first book in the series, and the tagline is, "You can't escape the inheritance of the past, or can you?" Rancher Ruby Barkley and her ex-husband Gabe Ramirez are competing head-to-head for the Ag Innovator Game Show's new one-shot award, the Ag Superhero. The winner walks away with $3.75 million a year for 5 years with no accountability or need to earn the superhero, unlike the Innovator's other awards. But issues beyond those raised by their long-ago acrimonious divorce face Ruby and Gabe. Fence cutting, rogue biobots destructively ranging beyond programmed parameters, physical attacks, and the realization that they may need to reunite to save their son Brandon from indentured servitude. Then the secret shadow of Gabe's hidden inheritance reveals itself. Will he step up to the Martini or legacy? And what role will Ruby accept in any future they may share? So,
All right, that is our blurb. So we're going to dive in now, yeah?
yep, first chapter.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to you. Here you go. Is your screen, and everybody at home, remember, put your comments and questions into the comments, and we will ask them to Joyce when she's done. Okay, all you, Joy. I'm on mute.
Alrighty. So, Ruby Barkley hadn't worn this much makeup for a long time. She felt like scrunching her facial muscles to see if they could still move as she walked down the hallway from makeup to the green room, but resisted the temptation. Not that the cosmetic job would as much as crack. She knew better from wearing makeup like this during her years in the rodeo queen world. The right formulation would hold up to anything, including blizzards and driving rain. But it had been a long time since she had done the rodeo queen thing. Too many years wearing just moisturizer and mineral powder. Ranch work didn't require much else, even that. But getting reaccustomed to wearing heavy makeup was just another unpleasant necessity for recording the presentation of the 2059 Ag Innovators Superhero Contest finalists. $3.75 million at stake, she reminded herself. Ruby touched the silver locket at her neck. She'd polished it this morning until it shone, a pre-competition task that went back over 40 years to her earliest junior rodeo days. When she hadn't worn it, things had gone wrong. A door opened and an androgynous, dark-haired, almost fish-belly pale figure wearing the dark green and blue uniform of an Ag-I indentured worker careened through it, crashing into Ruby. The chain holding the locket snapped, and it fell to the floor before Ruby could grab it, popping open. The small picture inside fell out. "Oh, I'm sorry." The indentured person's voice was flat, almost mechanically so. They knelt and picked up the locket and chain, handing it to Ruby. As their dark brown eyes met hers, they cringed away, turning their gaze to the floor. "Oh no, Miss Barkley, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it." "It's all right. But can you get the picture for me, please?" "Oh, yes. I'm sorry. So very sorry," the indentured whimpered as they gathered the picture between index finger and thumb and held it out to Ruby with shaking hands. Ruby gently took it, half smiling at the old, faded picture of Gramps and Grandma Ryder. "Need to reglue it when I get back to the ranch." She fit the picture back inside the locket, and it stayed in place as she checked it. Then they examined the chain. Ruby sighed with relief as she saw that the jump ring holding the clasp had loosened. She could repair it when she got back to her room that tonight. "It will be all right," she said to the indentured as she slipped locket and chain into the pocket of the fringed white buckskin jacket that had been part of her Pendleton Roundup princess wear. "Please don't complain. Please," the indentured begged. "Why would I? It's an accident. It's fixable." The indentured bowed low, almost touching their head to their knees before straightening up. "I thank you, Miss Barkley. Thank you, thank you, thank you." They backed away from Ruby until they reached the next door and ducked inside. Ruby frowned. Now, what was that all about? Some companies were harsh with their indentured workers, but she hadn't thought that the Ag Innovator, Ag-I, would be one of them. Then, on the other hand, she was seeing a lot more indentured here than there had been 3 years ago when she'd won a one-year Innovator Award. Maybe it's about the pressure from it being the 25th anniversary of the Ag-I, or because I'm a superhero finalist. She shrugged. Nothing she could do about it now. All the same, she rubbed her fingers over the locket tucked away in her right pocket as she continued down the hallway toward the green room. A lot had changed over the past 25 years, and not just the weather. Ruby stopped at the door, taking a deep breath and giving the locket one last squeeze. She patted the crown of her silver belly Stetson hat that was part of this ensemble. Then she slipped into the green room, pausing before diving into the crowd of competitors, innovator staff, and ag-eye indentured around the prepackaged snacks and drinks, her stomach churning with high-key anticipation of showtime, like it used to do before every run-in at the beginning of a rodeo performance. Only then she'd had Sunshine with her, the Palomino mare quivering eagerly, just waiting for the gate to swing wide so she could explode into a gallop as the announcer bellowed, "And here's Ruby Barkley from Thunder County Days," or "Princess Ruby Barkley from the Pendleton Roundup," or "Your Miss Rodeo Oregon, Ruby Barkley." "Buck up, girl. It's just another innovator announcement," she told herself. "Everyone else here is just as nervous as you are, and they're just as desperate to win the innovator money, no matter what level they're at. We're all broke farmers and ranchers, here to entertain the big city world." Ruby walked further into the room and clicked up the camera bot provided her by Ag-Eye for social media postings during the superhero campaign. It darted out from its docking station on her wrist and hovered in front of her. She smiled widely as it took her picture, the same rodeo queen smile she'd perfected years ago. Getting ready to go into the green room for the Ag Innovator finalist announcements. "Wish me luck," she dictated subvocally. A hologram hovered in front of Ruby, and she checked picture and sound before clicking send, not only to her personal channels, but to the official Ag Innovator site. The approved chime dinged in her earpiece from the Ag-Eye site. Good. Ruby clicked the bot back to its dock and strode toward the food and drink. She didn't have Sunshine, but she did have the familiar swirl of her old Roundup chaps around her legs, part of the costume and role play for this competition. At least this formal Roundup outfit still fit. Here I go. It's just another innovator. Let the games begin. And yet it wasn't just another innovator. The final stages of the RubyBot's development and licensing depended on this competition. 25 years of hard work distilled down to 1 month of social media campaigning, product launch, and close scrutiny by the Ag-Eye inspection teams to assess her project for viability. So close to completion, but so far away if she couldn't get the bucks from the superhero innovator. $3,750,000 a year for 5 years. And unlike the superstar, no need to show progress toward a reported goal. But only one of us can win, and it's got to be me. Mom! Her son Brandon, one of the innovator producers, made his way toward her through the crowd, suave in his tailored navy blue suit and neatly trimmed black beard against brown skin that reminded Ruby of his father Gabe at that age. "You ready to go?" "Been through makeup and all." He surveyed her, frowning slightly. "Your Roundup outfit and not Thunder County Queen?" "I prefer this one. Fits the older me better. Gotta lose more weight for the Thunder County outfits. I was a skinny teen way back when. Plus, most people know the Roundup better than the Days." "Gotcha." Brandon took her arm. We're staging the superheroes over here." He gestured to a corner and rolled his eyes. "I'm trying to sort everyone out as they come out of makeup. Tight schedule with the addition of the superheroes this year." "Understood." Maybe she'd be able to make nice with the 2 superhero nominees who weren't Gabe and Mariah. "Mariah is still in makeup," Brandon said. He rolled his eyes. "Running late, or so she told Marky. Did you see her?" "Why am I not surprised?" "And no, I didn't see Mariah. Not that I'd acknowledge her anyway." Brandon snorted as he guided Ruby toward the corner. "So far, it's just Dad here for your group. The other 2 are running late as well. But Swaite had a legitimate traffic issue, and Cho apparently needed to deal with a sick kid before leaving the hotel. Mariah, she was still in the building, and she just dawdled her way in. But not to worry, Ma. You still beat her hands down while looking good for your age. But my looks weren't enough to keep your father, Ruby thought bitterly as they approached the corner. She saw Gabe in one of the overstuffed chairs, hand resting on a cane, and startled. He looks old. Even so, spotting him still made her heart jump momentarily, like it had when she first saw him swinging a leg over a saddle bronc. Then anger quickly tightened her gut as she remembered other incidents. No time for that. She hadn't seen Gabe for 7 years, no, 8, since Brandon had turned 18 and their shared custody had ended. His dark hair was clipped close to his head, more gray than black, and his goatee was mostly gray and white with a few black streaks. His normally brown skin had gone pale. He struggled to his feet, leaning heavily on the cane, and stretched out his right hand. Ruby, dear, it's good to see you. He'd clearly lost a lot of weight. She moved her tea to her other hand and took his. Presumptuous of him to assume I want any physical contact. But now was not a good time to object. What? She fought back her startle at the touch, her hand lingering in his for more than the barest of formalities. Gabe's hand was dry, warm, soft. When had Gabe gone soft? This was not what she expected to feel in Gabe's hand. He's really gone downhill. Good to see you too, she said mechanically, still off kilter and surprised. He sighed, letting his fingers trail along her palm before thumping back down into his seat. I'm sorry to be rude, but I'm still in rehab. Ruby winced. I didn't realize. He gestured at the chair next to him. Go ahead and sit here if you'd like. Recovering from the G9 virus is no walk in the park. You're lucky to have avoided it. G9 virus. That explains a lot. She hadn't been at risk because of swift quarantine measures, but the reports she heard about the G9 were horrific. Hallucinations, body aches, seizures, high fevers, post-G9 syndrome that mimicked polio and other nasty viruses and long-term effects, especially cardiac. Not something she would wish on anyone, as even Gabe. Now that she thought about it, Brandon had told her when Gabe contracted G9. As Ruby sat, she noticed that the other chairs were grouped further away from Gabe's seat. From the faint smile Brandon gave them, she suspected the arrangement was deliberate on his part. Brandon snapped his fingers and a cam buzzed to him. Lean in close for a picture, he said. Really, Brandon? Ruby growled. It's good social media, Gabe said quietly. Yeah. After all, the two of you were the winners in the first Superstar competition, Brandon said. And now you're separately up for the Ag Superhero. Talk about history. 25 years after the Innovators show started, and 3 of the original competitors have made it to the finalist stage. Big difference. This year we're competing in February, not October, Gabe said. That's a big change. Brandon's lips tightened. Too many other shows in the fall. Then he forced a smile. The only thing that would make better media is if the two of you got back together during the competition. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen, Ruby said through her teeth as the bot snapped several shots. She didn't add. And what about Mariah? Wouldn't the showrunners love it if we replayed that drama? No, I don't want to go there. Gabe took her hand and leaned closer as Brandon beamed. Stranger things have happened. You going to support the Ruby bot if we get together for the show's sake? Now it was his turn to mutter through his teeth. My microbials are a better option. And just how close to a distribution license have you gotten with them? I'm getting there. Another couple of years. The Ruby bot's in final trials. Well, congratulations, Gabe muttered in a tone that did not sound congratulatory at all. He started to release Ruby's hand, but then clamped down as he glared at someone on the other side of the room. A hologram popped up in front of Brandon as he summoned the picture view, flicking through several shots before finding one where they were holding hands and both of them were smiling. You want copies? Brandon spun the holo so they could see it directly. Not really, Ruby said. Sure, Gabe said, his attention still focused elsewhere. I'll send one to both of you, but this one is upload worthy. He snapped his fingers, and Ruby heard the faint chime as the picture landed in her inbox. Another snap, and the drone whizzed away, apparently taking pictures of the gathering. Brandon typed something, then grinned. I've got to go. Mom, Dad, he said, you be nice now. Ruby snorted. I won't bite if he doesn't. Gabe forced a chuckle. Same old Ruby. He winced and leaned back in his chair, still clinging to Ruby's hand, as if he'd forgotten he held it. God, this is tiring me more than I anticipated. His thumb started tracing a shape on her palm, a trefoil. I didn't realize the G9 bug was so bad, she said. Brandon did tell me it killed Rachel. I was sorry to hear that, Gabe. She made you happy. He didn't say anything about how severely you got it. The G9 came on fast, Gabe said, lips tightening. Even as near as we are to Pendleton, though it wasn't close enough. Rachel died during the medevac. They said my work with the microbials gave me some protection. She didn't get that. I'm sorry, Ruby repeated. The G9 hadn't made it to Thunder County. After the early reports, the county had blockaded the high mountain valleys entrances, with inspection and quarantine stations at the two roads that provided access to the Thunder Valley. County medical services had learned over the years to react quickly to fast-moving pandemics. High mortality illnesses that left survivors crippled overloaded the county's limited medical services, and the G9 had been classified as one of those. After the mutated flu that had nearly killed Brandon as a kid, things had changed. Yeah. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. Gabe chewed on his lip, eyeing Ruby as he still held her hand. Then he tensed, once again glowering as Philip Martiniere, head of the large Martiniere group that had investments in assorted ag-related technologies, as well as indentured labor pools, specialized body modifications, and more, walked in their direction. What the heck is he doing here? Gabe growled. Ruby shrugged. I guess he's one of Georgie Batineau's investors. Batineau had been the owner of Ag-I until it had gone public 10 years ago, as other game show financing endeavors became popular. Now, almost any major debt that could result in indenture had some sort of fundraising game show for a handful of lucky contestants. Medical debt, college debt, gambling debt, and assorted small businesses and towns. He can buzz right off if he thinks I'm kissing his behind, Gabe said. His gaze didn't move from Philip Martiniere, and his thumb retraced the trefoil on Ruby's palm as Martiniere matched Gabe for angry stare for angry stare. The Martiniere group trefoil is what Gabe's tracing on my hand, she realized. What on earth? She knew that there was some connection between Gabe and the Martiniers. When they first got together, he'd been on the run from their indentured bounty hunters. but she thought that had been taken care of years ago. Why would Philip Martiniere be interested in Gabe now? Then she scowled as a slender, sharp-faced blonde woman in a shiny silver A-line sleeveless dress with matching stiletto heels joined Martiniere. Mariah Myers. And there's Mariah, she said sourly as Martiniere turned his back to them. Gabe eased his grip slightly, but didn't let go of Ruby's hand until Martiniere moved off, Mariah in tow. So, it sounds like you're still flogging the Ruby bot. Traces of his angry growl still hung in his voice, aimed at her or at Martiniere. She wasn't sure. And you're still pushing microbials, she countered. Gabe shook his head. Ruby, Ruby, Ruby. The RubyBot's tech is just too complicated to sustain in the field. You keep trying to put too much into it. That's what screwed us over the first time. What screwed us over the first time was your distraction with Mariah and not paying attention to the grow box when Brandon was sick. Ruby snapped. Ruby, that's unfair. Is it? And speak of the devil. Ruby's voice trailed off as Mariah left Philip Martiniere and walked toward them. And there we are.
Oh, and I'm back. Okay, sorry about that. I tried to hit the unmute button and I just missed completely and was clicking the blank screen. So it's like, no, I'm here. I hear you. So, well, okay. So that was great. Thank you so much for reading to us from that. So the premise of your book is so unique. I mean, I really know nothing about this kind of thing, and so I find it quite fascinating. So I might have missed it in the first, right in the beginning. But what were you calling them? The
Basically,
indentures?
in this world, about the end of the 2020s, beginning of the 2030s, because debt kept rising, student debt wasn't forgiven, people had masses of medical debt, they started paying off their debt by going into indentured servitude. That is, they'd sign their life away to a company for a certain number of years. And so they would be indentured workers.
Oh man, can you imagine that? That would be terrible.
This way, I have some grim. It's not as grim as some of the things I could have imagined, but
no, but it's so dystopian when you think about it, right? Well, because it's kind of like that already with the way that the cost of college is by the time you get out, you know, you find yourself in quite a lot of debt, and effectively working to pay that off is kind of a form of it. But at least in that form of it, I mean, call it cold comfort, I suppose, but at least in that form of it, if they don't obey certain laws, you can quit, get a new job, or like sue them if they actually have done something, provably, abusive or whatever. It sounds like just the indentures in your book are just there for better or worse, and that sounds terrible. They have no indentured rights.
That's basically it. And actually, indentured rights do become an issue throughout the whole. It gets worse. And,
oh man.
Yeah, and that becomes part of the conflict for the trilogy, is the battle to free the indentures. Brandon ends up battling for indentured rights, but there's uglier stuff that comes down. And when I mentioned the body mods, that's part of it. And Gabe is running from Philip Martiniere. Gabe thinks he's his uncle. He's actually Gabe's father.
Oh boy.
Gabe doesn't know that. Gabe doesn't learn that until halfway through the second book. And Gabe was actually walked away from being in line to take control of the Martini Air Group after he testified against sex trafficking and human trafficking that was being done by the Martini Air Group. When Ruby first meets him 30 years previously, he's just, all she knows is he's a broke saddle bronc rider down on his luck. But boy, he's got a big smile, he's polite, and he's darkly handsome, and he's smart.
So I do have a couple questions that are from out here, and this is the first one. You spoke of research and rabbit holes, and what was the rabbit hole that inspired you to write this sci-fi agricultural superhero mesh? And they then commented after that they know you touched on it some, but they just felt that was a serious, Jack felt that was a serious crossover and would like to hear more.
Well, I've been toying with trying to write something that was kind of more ag-based, because out here, I mean, our weekly newspaper has regular coverage of wheat farming and beef farming and stuff like that. But the thing I think that really triggered it was something called 30 Harvests. And I should, if I'd been smart, I would have had the website up. But it's a movement among farmers to address climate change. And basically we can fight climate change through farming, but we've got 30 harvest, the goal is 30 harvests to do it by 2050.
Harvest seasons, not 30 people harvesting in one season.
No, it's 30 harvest seasons.
Gotcha.
30 seasons. So, then the other thing too is there's a group of farmers called Peterson Farm Bros. They do parody videos based on farming. One of my favorite is Tractor Stuck, which is basically tractors stuck in the field thunderstruck. But they do others like that, and it's all
Tractor Stuck. Got it.
But I started poking around into the 30 harvest stuff, and then I started. One of the things that I kind of got fascinated with was, wow, people in ag technology are saying satellites do not give enough detail. You think about all those satellites up there taking pictures of things, and you think they could give you good detail about the soil and water and mineral profile of a field. No.
I'm shocked by that, actually. They can satellite right onto a street.
Yeah. The ag people will tell you flat out that's insufficient detail. They're running drones. They're putting stakes out there to track the weather, because when you're planting a big 500-acre field, the plants don't mature at the same time, even though they're planted at the same time, because there are temperature variations, and there's water profile variations, and mineral, everything is varied. I mean, one of the reasons that farming is so computerized right now is that when you're running like a seeder, you can drop little granules of fertilizer and pesticide or herbicide at the same time as the seed, program your field's profile into the seeder, and then they go off and they do it, and it happens all at once.
Wow.
But it's part of being less invasive. It's because every time you run a piece of equipment over the field, it compacts the soil. And
sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so, I didn't graduate with a degree in ag. I didn't graduate with a degree in agronomy, but I've grown up around it, and I've been a 4-H person, and I've been around it a good chunk of my life. So it was like, whoa, and then you start going, oh, well, we're talking about RNAi manipulation.
Yeah.
But that's not a GMO.
This is just such a cool and unique crossover for dystopian kind of, it's not really post-apoc. I think near future writing is probably more accurate, but yeah, this is such a cool crossover. I don't know, it's very unique from many of the things that I have seen out there. So we had another question. Let me find it here real quick. It is, do you find it more challenging to write the first book in a series or to write the subsequent novels?
Writing the subsequent novels. My first two series, I wrote them over a course of 5, 6, 7 years. Oh man, going back and trying to keep track of things. Because of the way everything was coming out during COVID, I sat down and wrote these 3 books, one right after another. And that was easier, I should say, because when you write something and put it out, you can't go back and retcon it.
Right.
And so, even though I plot, things change. And so now I can go back, I was able to go back and make it more coherent and make it kind of fit together better without having to go through the agony and the pain of the research. My fantasy series was what really gave me the grief on that one.
Now, I know I saw another question here. Let me see if I can find where that question may have gone. Here we go. This one is from Facebook, a watch party. That's what I'm looking for. I kept wanting to say a share stream, which isn't really a thing. So, and I just want to say, guys out there, we're coming up towards the end of the show here, which means if you want to be entered for the drawing to win a copy of this book, now is the time to put your name into the comments. And I'll take this last question here for Joyce to give you a little bit of time to put your name into the comments, and then we will spin the wheel of win. So yes, I'm going to put a little note up there. Put your name, guys, and then let me go and find this. Here we go. Because I can't pull this next question up onto the screen based on where it's coming from. But the question is, do you have a favorite character that you have written? And if so, who and what makes them so special?
There's always the favorite characters from the latest book or the latest series. I don't know. I like Ruby and Gabe just about equally. Gabe grew on me. But Ruby is kind of the epitome of all of those tough ranch women I've read about. She's also kind of roughly based on some rodeo queen people I've known up here in northeastern Oregon. Several of them.
I've never heard this term rodeo queen before, so that's a new one for me.
Well, rodeos, they usually have like a court. And so the rodeo queen is the one who wins, and the others are the princesses. And it's not, some people think it's a beauty pageant, but my barn owner is a former rodeo queen herself and is a rodeo queen advisor and is on the board of Miss Rodeo Oregon. And part of the competitions include horsemanship. So you've got to go out and you've got to ride your horse and you've got to be able to demonstrate that you are capable of handling a horse in a large crowd, because the queens enter at the beginning of each rodeo. The queens and the princesses, the rodeo courts, enter at a dead freaking gallop, and they do a big circle of the arena. Well, that's like music blaring, and these days it's usually rock music, and so it's heavy metal music, thumping along. There's a lot of stuff, so you've got to be able to ride. So there's a little bit of beauty queen, there's a little bit of horsemanship, then you got to sell speeches. You got to make speeches, be able to make speeches, but you also have to sell tickets.
get the how do they say, butts in seats?
Yeah, but I mean, ticket sales also count towards winning the queen position. And my barn owner's daughter, in fact, is part of the honor court of Chief Joseph Day Rodeo.
I just
Because
had no idea this whole realm of royalty existed.
well, you know, you'll see them at like parades, like the Rose Parade. You'll
Mm-hmm.
see rodeo courts riding in that, and I mean, it's they serve a purpose of being promotional for the
Right.
rodeo, but they also they may, like, when you've got calf roping or something like that, they may escort they'll open gates, they have various roles. And behind the scenes on a rodeo is kind of entertaining and interesting because the people, I mean, last year, and I was going to do that this year, but COVID.
COVID, right? And everything canceled.
Yeah. Last year, I volunteered and helped serve food to like rodeo attendees, and oh my, very polite people, very friendly, very grateful, and praising our local rodeo because we go out of our way to feed and take care of the competitors.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, yeah,
It's a whole thing.
it's a whole thing. And I mean, it's, you know, the girls will go out and they'll ride in parades, they'll visit other rodeos. But my ranch owner's daughter, Destiny Wex, is like a princess of high school rodeo. I think it's
Hmm.
national, not, no, maybe it's just state of Oregon. And she's been like, when she was a little kid, she was junior Miss Rodeo Oregon. She wants to be wants to compete for Teen Miss Rodeo Oregon, go on to be Miss Rodeo Oregon. And then, I mean, she's a serious competitor, which means that she spends a lot of time training and training horses, because you have to have specialized horses. And if you don't have a lot of bucks, then that means you've got to borrow horses. So Ruby is kind of like Destiny in that respect, that she's borrowing horses, she's training horses. She doesn't have it given to her on a silver platter.
Right. Has to get the grassroots in there, right? Working
Yeah.
from the ground up. So
Yeah, and I
what?
mean, it's different by region too. I mean, some regions are more. And then there's, you know, but there's black rodeo, there's Mexican rodeo, there's gay rodeo. There's a lot of different things out there.
So we are coming to the end of the show here, and that means it is drawing time. I think I've got all the names, my nose itches, that I saw go into the comments for everybody. One last call, you guys. I'm going to count down from 3 if you want a chance to win a copy of Inheritance, which is the book Joy was reading to us from. The words come out in the order that I want. Yes. Then please put your name in the comments right now, and I will be adding you here to the Wheel of Win, which I am putting on the screen as I speak. Here it is. Da-da-da. So we will add you on to this, and I'm going to spin it here in just a couple seconds. I know I have a little bit of lag usually, so I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds to see if we've got any more last minute names, and then we will do the drawing for the book. This is for a copy of Inheritance by Joyce Reynolds-Ward. Okay, I see no names, so I am going to go ahead and complete this here. I'll do this here just in case. Here is the wheel. I love this part. It's always so fun.
It looks like fun.
And spin. Congratulations, Wendy Fitch. You are the winner for today's copy of Inheritance by Joyce. Thank you so much for joining us today, Joyce. Do you have any other questions that you would like to, not questions, things you would like to say to the audience before we let you go?
Just stay safe. Keep looking forward to when we finally get past COVID.
Right.
and have fun.
Yes, and you've got this whole series is coming out, the first one now, and then just November, December, and something coming around next year, number 4. So people will have a consistent intake. I do want to say, as a little reminder that I always put at the end of our shows, you guys, Joyce's links are all in the low bar description. If you want to pick up her book, you can go there to buy a copy, follow her on the social media, and also, if you buy a copy, please, please, please leave that review, because that review helps out indie authors so much. So with that said, today's Friday, and that means Sunday, in just 2 days, we will have Handmade Home Shopping. That will be here and at 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific, where we will have show and tell from several vendors throughout the hour for your shopping pleasures. Okay, thank you, everybody. Hit like and subscribe, and I hope that we will see you Sunday. Goodbye.